Hi everyone, it's Coach Fred here, and I've got another episode of SAT Prep on noticing and working with math. So, what is math? Again, I want you to think about what math is to you, and it's not just numbers and multiplication and division. Math is the study of patterns. So, mathematicians have been looking at patterns in this world, and they've been coming up with different equations um, and rules for these patterns that they see. So when we think of math, what we want to do is we want to try at a minimum to notice patterns, okay? And I think one of the reasons I liked looking at this test is because it's full of patterns. It's full of patterns in the writing, in the readings, in the math. So you've got to notice them and you've got to find those patterns. And then you look at how you deal with them. Okay, so I want you to ask yourself, if you ever get stuck on a problem, you're not really sure what to do, ask yourself what you notice. It's actually a good habit to ask yourself that every time because it may make you decide to handle the problem a little bit differently. Here's what I mean. Here's an example from practice test 10, number 3, and non-calculator. Oh, wait, no, I'm sorry, calculator. And it's giving us this word problem. It's number 3, so it should be pretty easy. It says the table above shows shipping charges for an online retailer that sells sporting goods. There is a linear relationship between the shipping charge and the weight of the merchandise. Which function can be used to determine the total shipping charge, f of x, in dollars for an order with a merchandise weight of x pounds? So they've given me some basic information. They're telling me that this is x and this is f of x, or y, right? They're telling me the function is linear. I noticed that they said that. It's a linear relationship. I also noticed that these were going up 5, but then this one was going up 10, and then this one was going up 20. So I just have to be really careful here when I think about it. I also noticed that all of my functions were in slope-intercept form, in the form y equals mx plus b, but using function notation. So that's all I looked at. All right, so then if it's a linear function, what do I have to do? I have to find the slope, okay? So there's a couple ways you could do this. You could estimate the slope. That's kind of what I did. I made this 22 and I made this 17, okay? And so I know that it was going to be 22 minus 17 all over 10 minus 5, okay? So 22 minus 17 is 5. Over 5 is 1. So the closest, it's either going to be B or A or B, because C and D are now thrown out because those slopes are too large. Okay, so now if the slope is 1, that means that if I go back 5, I have to go back 5 this way. So if I go back 5 to 0, I'd be at my Y-intercept. So from 17, if I go back 5, I'd be at 12. Well, the answer here is 1199. So B. So it's okay to estimate on things like this because it's going to be close enough. And I recognize that in the answers because they were really different. So that's one thing that how you can handle using notice. Okay. What else could we notice? Well, let's look at another example. All right. So this is number 6 from that same test. Practice test 10, math, non-calculator. Okay. So let's think about it. What are all the values of x that satisfy the equation above? So I look at the equation above and I notice that it's a rational equation. Why is it rational? Because it's a fraction with variables in it. So I've got variables in the denominator. So we have to be careful. So I notice right away that x cannot be 1. Because if x is 1, then it's going to make the denominator 0. So anytime I see a rational function, I need to notice the rational function first. Then I need to notice what value is going to make the denominator 0. So that's kind of the steps I go through. So I know that 1 cannot be x. So that tells me I can get rid of c. Okay? Now, here's the thing. I could plug in the answers here, and that might be what I would do here, because to solve this rational equation is going to be a little bit tricky. And it's only question number 6, which I noticed. Question number 6 shouldn't involve a lot of math. So I just decided I was going to plug in the answers, okay? And I actually started with 0 because I thought that was an easier place to start. So if I plug in 0, I got 0 minus 1, which gave me negative 1, and then 0 minus 1 is negative 1, which would give me 2, and 2 does not equal negative 2, so it's not 0. Now, I could use negative 3 next, but the problem with that is if negative 3 is an answer, I still have to test negative 1. So I decided to think about that carefully and decided to plug in negative 1 first. So I did negative 1 squared minus 1, and I did negative 1 minus 1. And I need to see if that equals 2. Okay, remember equals means is the same as. All right, so negative 1 squared is 1. Minus 1 gives me 0. 0 over negative 2 is 0, which is not negative 2, which is not negative 2. So negative 2, 0 does not equal negative 2, so negative 1 is not my answer, so my answer has to be A. Do you have to even test it? No, not really, because you've gotten rid of all the other options. Okay, so those are some things that I notice. Let me see what else we got going on here. All right, so number 20 on that same test, we're on practice test 10, non-calculator number 20. Okay, it says, so it's considered the hardest one on the test, usually, 15 and 20 on the non-calculator part. So if u plus t equals 5 and u minus t equals 2, what is the value of u minus t, u squared minus t squared? So this is kind of unfamiliar, the way they've asked this question. This isn't something, the way we'd ask a question in a math class. But what do I notice? Okay, well, I notice that I'm given a u plus t and a u minus t. And that makes me think, because they're the same variables but opposite signs, one opposite sign, it makes me think of dots, the difference of two squares, because that factor pattern is x plus y, x minus y. So it makes me, so I notice that. Then I notice in what they're trying to find the value of, the question they're asking, that's the difference of squares. So what I did was I factored it. So u plus t, u minus t. Okay, so now if you looked at my video on noticing with substitution, right now is a great place to use substitution. They told me that u minus t was equal to 2, so 2. And they told us u plus t was equal to 5, so 5. And u minus t was equal to 2. All I do is multiply the numbers. 2 times 5 is 10, 5 times 2 is 20. I'm sorry, 2 times 5 is 10, 10 times 2 is 20. So my answer would be 20. All right, I know this is a rather long video, but I'm going to do one more. Okay. This is on actually practice test 6 math calculator. Practice test 6 math calculator. All right, we're on number 22, so it's probably a medium level question. The first year, Eleanor organized a fundraising event. She invited 30 people. For each of the next 5 years, she invited double the number of people she had invited the previous year. If f of n is the number of people invited to the fundraiser n years after Eleanor began organizing the event, which of the following statements best describes the function f? So I like the way they ask this. That's a pattern. Best describes the function. So they're wanting you to describe this function. All right, I noticed a couple things. I noticed that we were doubling something, and I noticed that she started with 30 people. I always want to know what she started with. The starting point means a lot of different things. Starting point is the y-intercept in a linear function. Could be the same thing as you think of the y-intercept in an exponential function. All right, then I look at the answers. So it looks like I have 2 linear and I have 2 exponential. Now, I did discuss this when I went over exponential functions, but let's notice again, I noticed that. So first, I just want to decide, is it linear or is it exponential? So if it's linear, we're looking for a constant rate of change, meaning the same number every year. If it's exponential, we're looking for the change by a percentage or doubling, tripling, or half-life. Doubling or tripling or half-life, because those are percentages. We just might not recognize them as a percent. So this is doubling, So it is exponential, so I'm going to eliminate A and B. Okay? Then the only thing I have to check is if it is decreasing or increasing. And so it went up, so it's increasing, so my answer would be D. So you really have to break apart the questions, notice what the answers are kind of helping you towards, and go from there. All right, guys, hope that was helpful. Have a great day.